Now it's time for my panel discussion. So I'm going to lead a panel discussion on mentorship, okay? And I have a little script here, but I'm not going to follow it because this is how I think of mentorship, okay? So mentors are people who have a little life experience, and they are mentoring usually younger people with less life experience, and they're trying to help them develop professionally and personally, okay? And the mentorship relationship definitely works both ways. You know, the mentors definitely learn things from the mentees and stuff, but hopefully if it's done right, the mentees are learning more. Okay, anyway, and the thing is that it used to be, you know, in the old days, like I'm 64, and when I was training, it was sort of the end of, well, in the old days, there were a lot of cottage industry small practices out there. In fact, when I was a third-year resident at UC Davis, I did this one-month elective with 3 family doctors in Vacaville. And I did full call, you know, and weekend coverage. I went to the business meetings. It was wonderful, wonderful. I almost joined the group, but mentorship just followed naturally in those days because the mentors were totally motivated, incentivized to have you thrive professionally and personally, because their success, your success was their success, right? So you didn't have to encourage any of the senior physicians to mentor the younger ones. It just happened naturally. That being said, now many of us work in much larger groups. There's not always that natural motivation or incentive to mentor or to coach or to counsel. So we kind of have to take a fresh new approach to it. And there are a lot of things that are working well in mentoring and some things that aren't working so well. And today we're going to treat you with a panel of 4 wonderful physicians who are going to share some stories about mentoring, and I think that you'll resonate with many of them. So the format's going to be that each one's going to have about 10 minutes to speak, and then we'll have a robust Q&A session afterwards. Okay, and then of course I'm just going to speak on their behalf. Christina, why are you laughing? I don't know. Okay. She's giddy. She's one of my favorite people because she saved me on a thing recently. But anyway, it's not just this 1 hour. Like, I'm sure they'll all provide all their contact information, and you can bother them forever, okay, with all your questions and stuff, and they'd be glad to help you. Okay, so let me introduce the panelists, and I guess you could come up as I say your names. So Dr. Christina Bilyeu is the Chief of Mental Health Services for TPMG's North Valley region, which is Sacramento and Roseville. She serves on the board of directors. Go ahead and give her a big round of applause. Just encourage her, okay? Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha, okay. Love the hair. We've had breakfast together and things. It might be new, I'm not sure. I don't always know, but that's uniquely beautiful. Okay. She serves on the board of directors for Hope Cooperative, a community mental health agency in Sacramento and Yolo counties, and the Sacramento Sierra Valley Medical Society. One other thing I just have to share, okay, is that after I retired from TPMG, I had a mentally ill, crazy patient start stalking me and threatening me on social media and all this and that. And as a family physician, I was kind of unfamiliar with that, so I called Christina. I said, hey, you know, like, can you help me out with this? She goes, oh, yeah, you wouldn't know about that in family medicine, but this happens to us all the time. Anyway, she talked me through the whole thing. I had to get a restraining order. She talked me through that, and so she's just one of my favorite people on planet Earth. Okay, all right. She's a mentor for me in being stalked, all right, so that's good. Okay, okay, I'm going to introduce Dr. Martin a little later because she's on her way, and I want her to hear the nice things I'm saying about her. Okay, Dr. Eric Williams, another one of my heroes in life. Big round of applause. Dr. Williams is a retired vascular surgeon at Kaiser Permanente and chair of the SSVMS Future of Medicine Program Committee, an avid writer and photographer, like absolutely, and he oftentimes shares it in the medical journal and stuff. Dr. Williams compiled some of his writings and photographs into a book called Perspective Matters. He is committed to giving the opportunity to the adults of tomorrow the chance to make an informed career choice. The other thing is, we were trading emails among the panelists earlier this week, and Dr. Williams said, I'm here in Florida and I can't get a flight out of Florida. I'm going to have to miss the panel, and he felt really bad about that. But lo and behold, he got in at midnight last night, and he's here. That's how much he cares about you, okay? Yeah, that's good. Rojin Sharaflari, second-year medical student at California North State University, one of my first-year medical students in medical skills, who I love very much. Big round of applause, Rojin. She's a physician candidate at California North State College of Medicine, set to graduate in 2027. It's all going well, right? You probably 2027. When I went to medical school, the first day of classes, Dr. Dean Sherman Melankoff, who was called the Dean of American Deans just because he was really old, the first thing he said was, I'm looking around the room, I see some of you look a little nervous. I just want to guarantee you that all of you are going to graduate, okay? The University of California has already invested so much money in you, you're all going to graduate. And sure enough, all of us did. I think 3 classmates maybe took an extra year and stuff, but that's what I tell the students. I hope it's true. I said, if you just study and don't take drugs, you're going to graduate. Okay. All right, so anyway, she is currently the president of Organized Medicine, where she is dedicated to increasing medical student involvement in health policy. Her goal is to establish a practice focused on making a positive impact in underserved communities. And I know a little bit extra about you, like you're from San Diego, and then you went to Boston for college and all that, and then you worked in biotech for 5 years, and then you worked at Epic for 1.5 years, right? So any questions you have about Epic or biotech, she'll do a little seminar for you afterwards, okay? Okay. I'm going to introduce Dr. Angelica Martin, and then she'll kind of wander in. She's a second-year cardiothoracic surgery resident at the UC Davis Integrated Thoracic Surgery Program. Of course, that's why she's late, okay? She's probably saving a life. She's also a District 11 representative for the California Medical Association resident section. In her free time, she doesn't have free time, but she mentors underrepresented in medicine medical students and runs marathons. Oh, God, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Okay, good. All right, so some of the questions that we posed to the panel are these, okay? But I thought, rather than just having an open panel and having them answer these questions, I thought you might get some asymmetric input, because it might be kind of random. So I'm just going to tell you what some of the guideline questions were, and then I'm going to give each of them about 10 minutes to speak, and then we'll go on that, because they all have so many good things to say. But some of the guideline questions were, tell us about a mentor who had a significant impact on your life and career, or what have you found to be the best mentoring strategy, like formal versus informal? How do we need to modify mentoring in medicine to meet the new challenges we face, such as the growing roles of remote work and AI? How was it that you came to find your mentor? Was it a formal relationship or did it develop informally? Have you had a mentor relationship that didn't work out, and what happened? What did you find to be the key personality trait in identifying your mentor? If you had a positive mentor, do you feel the sense of duty to also be a mentor? Tell us about a case where one of your mentors affected your practice of medicine, and why do you think serving as a mentor for future and young physicians changes how you approach your medical practice, all right? So without further ado, I'm gonna take a seat, and then I'm gonna let them speak, and I'll raise my hand or something about 9 minutes into it so you kind of know, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, any questions, panelists, or anybody from the audience before we get started on this wonderful panel? Okay, take it away.
I guess I'll go first. So when John said, oh, you're going to have 10 minutes to talk, I said, I thought you were just going to ask the questions. Even though I'm a psychiatrist, this is not my comfort zone. So, but in thinking about this topic, it is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I have been very fortunate in my life to not have had a bad mentor, so I'm very grateful for that. But I have had 3 mentors in my life that have significantly impacted it, that I'm, 1, current, and 2, that I am still in contact with. So the mentoring relationship never really ends. The first one, I was a bright-eyed 14-year-old girl in the cornfields of Indiana. I went to a boarding school from southeast Florida. Going to the cornfields of Indiana is a big leap. And being away from home is a big leap. And I had always known that I wanted to be a doctor. I wasn't really sure what kind of doctor I wanted to be. And I really thought maybe sports medicine was going to be the place where I landed. And so I became a student athletic trainer. And the head trainer, Dan Cowell, Coach Cowell, he took me under his wing. And it looked very different than what my mentoring relationship looks like now, but it looked like going over to his family's house for dinner, long talks on drives to football games, when I talked to him about college, what that would look like. When I said, well, maybe I'll be a trainer instead. And he said, no, Chris, no, you will not. That's not your dream. That's not your goal. And this is how we're going to achieve it. And so really encouraging me every single step of the way. And I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to go back to my high school for a mini 28-year reunion. And I got to spend about 3 hours with him, just talking with him, and actually watching him continuing what he did for me with, juniors and seniors in high school that look like they're 5, but it was really awe-inspiring to see him continuing to do this work, and to just watch him and then sit down with him and really be able to share with him the impact that he has had and continues to have on my life. So that's Coach Cal. The second one, fast forward to fellowship, and my first year as an attending, my fellowship director, Chris Burke, I did my fellowship in New York and then went on to Ohio State, and I went from working in a team through residency and fellowship to being the solo attending on a consult service in an urban hospital with a very sick population. And this was the case that I remember very vividly standing in the middle of the hallway, looking out the windows at the Ohio State campus and saying, I cannot do this. I had a patient that was in fulminant liver failure, but was also in alcohol withdrawal, and I couldn't give him the normal treatment that we would for alcohol withdrawal because it would make him worse. And I remember calling Chris and saying, I cannot do this. And he said, Christina, yes, you can. And I was really, really scared. But I went ahead and proceeded with the treatment that I was a bit risky, but helped to bring the patient out of alcohol withdrawal and withdrawal delirium. And it actually changed how Ohio State treats alcohol withdrawal. So that was pretty amazing just to have that encouragement. And even now, when I have a case, even being out of fellowship for 10 years, 11 years now, when I have a case that I'm like, oh, I don't know, I just text him and I say, Chris, do you have a minute to, can you talk? And he's still in New York on the East Coast, so sometimes it takes us a little bit to, leverage technology and to get together, but he's always available. And my current mentor is someone that is vastly different than me. He's actually a vascular surgeon. and this is someone that I was meeting with him for a completely different reason. And after we finished our meeting, he said, I would really like to mentor you. And I thought, what is, that was actually the first time I'd had somebody actually say those words to me. Everything before had, come organically. And as I have reflected back, I definitely identify those two other gentlemen as mentors. But Dr. Campbell said, I really would like to mentor you. And I said, okay. And it has become, we meet pretty regularly. So there's definitely that formal aspect, but there's also times when, something comes across my email or I'm thinking about something and I'm like, I just send him a text and I say, what do you think about this? Even yesterday I sent him something that I'm thinking about doing with my own physician leadership group. And he was like, I think that's a great idea. So just having someone that I can quickly bounce those ideas off of, but also having someone that is in a position that maybe one day I would like to be in, and to be able to see him model some behavior and really encourage me to get out of my comfort zone in things and be able to, and for him, he really understands the value of sponsorship and being able to speak my name in circles that I don't necessarily sit in currently, and really helping to develop me. It's been a pretty amazing experience over the last couple of years. And thinking about that, I now have the opportunity to mentor one of our new chiefs, and I was thinking about it, and at first I was like, I'm not qualified to do this. And now I think about, well, yeah, I am. There's experiences that I've had, and I can do this. And I think about why I want to do it, and it brings me joy. That's one. And it reminds me of why I became a doctor and why I want to continue to do things like be a mentor and be available to people. And it reminds me that in this world of ever-changing, whether it's technology, AI, whatever that may be, still having that human connection with someone is so important and can really, really change the trajectory of someone's life.
So when I heard that I was going to be on this panel, I actually prepared a bit of a slideshow because I tend to use those a lot. But that would create so much more asymmetry that I think it's up there. So let's give it a go. So I'll take you back to where I was in high school. It's not on this slide, but there you go. If any of you remember when you were much younger and your teacher said to you, I want you to have your parent come in to see me. We need to have a discussion. That never ends well. Never ends well. This time it did. I remember distinctly one of my high school professors asking me to have my father or one of my parents come in to see me, to see them. And the discussion went like this. Because I grew up on a farm, cows, chickens, goats, the rest of it, large garden, a member of a 13-person family, fourth from the last, it was necessary to constantly make ends meet. My father was a mechanic. My mother stayed at home to take care of us. How else do you raise 11 kids? It's not an easy task. Nonetheless, what he said to my father was, I see something in Eric that says to me he has potential, but he is not being given the opportunity to achieve it. What can you do about it? That changed things for me at home immediately. And I found more time to study. I found more time to dream and to imagine. And one day while I was standing in front of a storefront, on the radio they played the transmission of the first heart transplant by Dr. DeBakey in South Africa, in South Africa. And it got my attention. It got my attention, and I constantly started looking at opportunities to get more into medicine. Dr. Christian Barnard really influenced me then, and so did my teacher at the time. Fast forward to college and medicine, I had professors and surgeons who took care of patients who were diabetic. And as you know, the peripheral artery disease is very frequent and prevalent among them. And to me, I saw way too many amputations and wondered what were we doing wrong, or what is it we were missing? And I got involved with one of the cardiovascular surgeons, and we really sat down and thought more about it. Now into fellowship, Dr. Ralph Dilley in San Diego at La Jolla, and I really worked together. And I remember him getting into trouble a few times in cases we did together. And I said, Dr. Dilley, I enjoy seeing you get into trouble. And he stopped, he put his hand on the field and says, what are you talking about? I said, you know, one day I am going to get into trouble and be faced with difficulties at the same time. And it's great to see how you handle it now. And our friendship continued all that time. take this all the way down to the point where I'm now at Kaiser. And I frequently spoke to 5th graders. And I was demonstrating the use of a Doppler to the 5th graders and talking about circulation. And this little girl at the back stuck her hands up and says, Dr. Williams, does that little gooey stuff you put in our hand help the machine pick up my heartbeat? And I was taken aback for 2 reasons. One, the insight of this young girl made me recognize that their thinking and the way they're thinking is so much more advanced than the way we teach students to learn. That we try to dummy things down and we don't respect the insight that they have. And that's something that has continued until back in 2012 now, when we developed a program that started out in Folsom, where we created a program with students, community leaders, parents, teachers, and of course with myself, so that we can create opportunities for students to look at careers. And medicine was one of them. But engineering, law, etc. were all part of it. And not everyone is going to go to college, and we need to respect that. It was very successful. The first year, there were only 9 students. Subsequent to that, the rooms were filled. In 2013, the program was kicked off as Vista Summer Preceptorship Program. Fast forward to 2021 now, and we are Sierra Sacramento Valley Medical Society. And we are now looking at this program, at the medical aspect of it, which is better suited to be run through a program such as this. And they have made such tremendous headway because they're so well connected locally and potentially nationally. And that's the way I see this going eventually. We're trying to move towards students who are have fewer opportunities. And that's important because I don't know if any of you recall the parable of the 5 blind men and the elephant. Each one of them walks up to the elephant and they touch the tail, they touch the trunk, they touch the legs, and they each think that the elephant looks like what they thought. The truth of the matter was that we all have some input, and we ought to respect each other regardless of what our background is. The other part that I look at in terms of reaching out to all of these areas is that we have students who are so talented, but unless you have a mother, brother, father, or uncle who are in the medical field, you don't imagine that this is something you could do. The first time I went out to one of those areas, students were talking about, I'm going to become a hairdresser or a barber. And that was the extent of their view of themselves and their world, when there is so much more that they can do and we could all benefit from. One of the things we have to look at as mentors too is creating connections for these students. Creating them and maintaining them. Be willing for students to reach back to you. I still have students reaching out to me now, 10 years later, and saying, this is where I am, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What are your thoughts? And I will not necessarily give them the answer to that, but it gives them an opportunity to voice their thoughts and their concerns. Also included in this is teaching soft skills. What is it like to work together? To not have to take on the entire world on your shoulder, to be held accountable. And that is not something that I think I learned fully even in my professional life, but I'm doing it still through my mentees. I also think that I look around this room and I realize that as we move forward with medicine, by the year 2030, we are going to be anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 physicians short. Now, there isn't much lead time between now and then to overcome it. But I suspect the next set of physicians who you're going to speak to will use AI and virtual reality in ways that you can't imagine. They live and breathe technology, and they will help us move forward and hopefully bridge that shortage gap. Some of the highlights of the program at Sierra Sacramento is that many of the students, whenever they come through, we have them develop skills of CPR. Imagine when someone goes down, time is of the essence. If you've got the opportunity to have someone on site immediately who knows CPR, the survival rate goes up. Do you know where most people who suffer cardiac arrest survive? You couldn't even guess. I didn't, but it's actually in a gambling location, because there's so many cameras around. Someone goes down, it's immediately witnessed, and there's someone performing CPR, and they survive. So they also learn overdose management and splinting. They learn soft skills and resilience. Health education is part of the program as well. We've got multiple health partners, and Dr. Chuck spoke of many of them. And of course, the school partners. One of the unique things about the program in some of the school districts as it expands is that we've managed to build this program, the mentorship program, into the school curriculum so that it shows up on the students' credentials as having achieved that. And imagine the impact of that when they apply to colleges. It's a huge difference. As you can see, we've had over 350 graduates so far. We're only talking about 3 years. There are over 50 high schools involved, some of them private high schools, and many trained in CPR and naloxone treatment. As you can see, it mentions here over 600 rides. What does that mean? Sam Mello has been a champion. This has been one of the most difficult things for her, getting students back and forth to where they need to be. And we now have another partner in terms of Lyft, and they are able to get the students where they need to be, when they need to be there. As you can imagine, many of these students live in areas they don't have access to vehicles, they don't drive. So if they didn't have that transportation, they could not take advantage of a program such as this. And of course, job shadowing and mentorship. That's coming from people like you, and we need more people like you. Many of these students, when they go through this program, are asked to complete a survey, and you see that about 20% of them have completed it, and that's very helpful in planning what we're going to do the following year. I'm going to go back for a minute and mention the CPR training. A little known fact is that many of these students, when they learn CPR, they're now able to get summer jobs, whether it's as a lifeguard or a babysitter. So it does help them bring an income in. They also take, and I found this out quite by mistake, they take the information that we give to them during mentorship back to their homes or back to their churches, and they share that insight into healthcare, proper eating, physical and mental habits. And the impact you have as a mentor goes well beyond that one individual that you touch. It's huge. We tell the students too that we are giving them the exposure to medicine or engineering or law, not so that you can decide that, yep, this is what I'm going to do, but you can decide that you may not want to do it. Can you imagine the cost of medical school in terms of money and time, only to find out that you don't want to do it, you didn't like it, or you become a healthcare provider and you are one of the most miserable people to come and see? We don't need any more of that. I think the best thing we can do is give people the opportunity to make an informed decision, an informed, lifelong decision. Here are some of the things that we've heard from some students. It's allowed me to look further into the healthcare industry and ultimately lead me into a pre-dental or dental program. I live in Florida right now, as Dr. Chuck had said, and whenever I come to the area, I still go see my dentist in Folsom. And they mentored one of the students several years ago, and they said to me the other day, "Do you know that student that came to see us? She's in dental school now, and she'll be done in about 2 years." And he was very happy about it, and I was happy too. But I thought to myself, the point was to give her the exposure, not necessarily convince her that being a dentist was what she should do. But that's another story altogether. Anyway, I suspect my time is done, but these are some of the things that we have. I wrote a poem a couple of years ago that said, and as you go down, lift someone else up so that they could take your place. I was wrong. I think we should do it now. Just like she's mentioning, do it now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Rojin, and I'm really excited actually to be here to talk about mentorship because it's something that holds a lot of value to me because I definitely would not be pursuing medicine if it wasn't for the mentors that I've had the privilege of meeting along the way. I've taken some notes on my phone because I want to make sure I give them full credit to all the things wonderful things I want to say about them. But I do want to talk about two specific people. One of them is a medical student that affected or impacted my decision to pursue medicine, and the other one is an attending that I see on a regular basis. So the first one that I want to talk about is Paul. I moved to US when I was about 16, and no one in my family was a physician. And you know the complexities of navigating the system to go into medical school, and it all just felt so overwhelming. And I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have really a roadmap. I had taken the MCAT. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I was just, really considering not even pursuing it because it just sounded so daunting. And I didn't know where to start. So around that time, I was working as an implementation consultant for Epic. And it was in one of those installations in Madison that I met Paul. At the time, he was a fourth-year medical student. And that meeting turned out to be a gigantic turning point in my life. And because Paul didn't just give me a few tips, he walked me through the entire process. He had the privilege of having two physician parents, so he knew what a luck it is to have that, and he recognized that what it must be like to not have that. He helped me draft my primary essays. At the time, it just felt like such an enormous task, didn't even want to start it. And he encouraged me to pre-write my secondaries, even though he was busy at this time with his own surgical intern year. And I remember being so struck by his dedication. He was in one of the most intense periods of life. But amongst that, while going through that, he made time always to help me. And not just in small ways. He shared his resources. He connected me with other medical students, with other residents, his own mentors. And he created this network when I just was feeling so lost. And as I was going through the application process, we practiced MMI interviews together. And I remember we did mock sessions, and he would give me feedback. And even now, Paul is he's a radiology resident at Loma Linda now. Even now, I check in with him very regularly. What stands out about him to me, and it's not just like the practical help that he offered me, it's the way he went about it. He always first wanted to understand me. He would ask questions about what I was struggling with and what I was really worried about and what were the barriers that I was facing at the time. Our paths to medicine were very different, but he never assumed that he knew what I needed. He always asked, and then he listened, and then he tailored his advice and support accordingly. That quality to be truly listening and understanding your mentee, I think is what makes him an exceptional mentor and an inspiration to me. And that's something us as medical students could learn from. The second person I really want to talk about is Dr. Farzanagan, who is an interventional radiologist in Kaiser, South Sacramento. I'm really interested in IR. And even as a lowly first-year medical student, when I was still finding my footing, he welcomed me to his world. He would allow me to come in and shadow him after my exams. And it really became something that I truly look forward to. I call it IR therapy. And after spending hours of studying like Krebs cycle, it was such a breath of fresh air to go and watch him do procedures. It really reignited my passion for medicine when I was so bogged down by textbooks and theory. But shadowing him wasn't just about observing IR procedures, which is pretty cool. It was about being a part of a team, because as I spent more time with him and his colleagues and his team, they allowed me to do more. I started scrubbing in, I participated in cases, and I really felt like I was contributing. And what was even more meaningful to me is how he treated me, not just as a student, but as someone who had potential. He made me feel like, and continues to make me feel like I'm part of something bigger. He trusted me to grow within his environment, and that sense of inclusion is incredibly motivating. What makes him stand out as a mentor isn't just what he taught me about the clinical side of medicine, which of course is invaluable, but it's that he's so invested in me as a person. He always takes my goals very seriously, and he continues to think about how to help me achieve them. For example, this summer, when I was struggling to find research opportunities, he reached out to his own network to help me, which opened doors I wouldn't have found on my own. He introduces me to other IRs, and he helps me get to know the field on a deeper level. And it's not just about the medical knowledge, it's about building connections and relationships within this field. Dr. Farzanagan also teaches me something about mentorship itself. It's not just about the clinical skills, the resume building, the research, although those things are very important. It's about being inspired. Being inspired by someone's work, their dedication, and their willingness to invest in you. And finding a mentor that sparks that inspiration and someone that makes you get excited, get up every day, go hit the textbooks, like we have a midterm on Monday, and still want to continue to do that is priceless. And building this long-term natural relationships with their mentors and their teams is incredibly invaluable. So I feel very lucky to have met these two people, and I hope that I can learn from the ways that they've inspired me to continue on that journey.
Angelica Martin coming to us from UC Davis, the surgery service. Thanks for joining us today.
Apologies for being late. I'm actually on nights, so our Saturday morning rounds run a little bit later. So my name is Angelica Martin. I am a PGY2 in the CT Surgery Integrated Program at UC Davis. There's only one spot at UC Davis. There's only 43 programs throughout the whole country, and I have the privilege of being the UC Davis second year. That's significant considering that I grew up in a single-parent home in Echo Park. So I am not supposed to be here before you right now as a doctor, as a college graduate, as a high school graduate. And I want to thank SSVMS for allowing me to share my story, because it's all because of people like my mentors who allowed me to actually reach my potential. There's so many children out there like me who have the potential. They just need the opportunity to be presented to them. And I think that that's what I've realized growing up. I've always looked back and thought, why me? There's so many of my friends that are just as capable, and we didn't follow the same paths. So I just really appreciate these opportunities. So in terms of mentorship, I have also really thought about that. I've had some great mentors who have become father figures. My dad died when I was 3. So my mom, she tried very, very hard. She was a Mexican immigrant, learned the English language. I would help with bills, and that's how I would practice my math. I would help with translating at the doctor, like many other immigrant children do for their parents, and that's how I practiced my English. And I was in ESL classes until 5th grade. But all of my teachers saw something in me, and they invested in me. And that's been a common thread throughout my life as well. So high school, my college counselor, John Kim, he became a very influential person in my life. And he would present opportunities to me. And I have been an eternal optimist and still am. So I was like, sure, I'll apply to this, I'll apply to that. And he would tell me, hey, no one has applied to the scholarship. I know you don't think about college right now, but you should probably apply to it. So I would apply to it, and turns out that it was the Bill Gates Millennium Scholarship Program that offered me a free ride to college and to graduate school. And it's just because people present these opportunities to you. So my first point is there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. And that's become more apparent and more important the further I get in my field, just like you were talking about. It's about building connections, being presented these opportunities. And that started luckily early for me with this college, actually in elementary school, but really my college counselor really was my first significant sponsor. From there, as a Latina who is very short in stature, but people think I'm always taller just because maybe I talk too much. It's very easy to be forgotten, and I don't present as someone who is going to take life by the horns, as you say. So it's always been great to have mentors who listen to my optimistic ideas of maybe expanding Medi-Cal to all children in California while I was working in politics. I worked with Supervisor Gloria Molina in LA County, so I have an MPH, and everyone that I worked with in politics and in health policy was always very open to my optimistic ideas, even though they might be pie-in-the-sky ideas. And I think that that's important as mentors to remember. We're the next generation. We haven't been jaded. We don't know what the rules are, but we can use that to the advantage. That's how we move forward as a field in medicine, right? We find new procedures that we can do. IR was, not a huge field before, but it's growing. We find new devices, we find new medications by people who don't think within the lines or the borders that are currently created. And I've been very lucky to have that with my mentors. I encourage all of you, some ideas might sound pie in the sky, unachievable, but you never know what might happen. So that's what happened after graduate school, and I encourage all of you to just listen to the ideas and give little pieces of access to networks that might help make that happen. My second point relates to that. One of my major mentors currently, and more than anything, he's a sponsor, is Dr. David Cook from UC Davis. He is a thoracic surgeon. And I met him when I was a first-year medical student because I was told that I shouldn't pigeonhole myself into one field, that I should explore, and I'm very good at taking advice because I have no idea what I'm doing. So I decided to shadow multiple specialties. And specifically, this person who was giving me advice said, you might want to check out surgery. You have a surgeon's personality. And I, at the time, was like, I don't know if that's an insult or not, but I will go ahead and try. So I shadowed a resident, and I was mind blown. I said, I want to do this. I thought surgery was just surgery. I didn't realize that there were subspecialties. So I said, okay, I want to go to surgery. I need to do research. Davis has a page filled with attendings who are willing to do research with medical students. Being the eternal optimist, I sent an email to the guy who seemed to have the coolest sounding research that I felt I could contribute to with my skill set. Very innocent. Hi, my name is Angelica. I, love politics. I am interested in all of this. I'd love to help and be involved in anything you have going on. Turns out it was the head of the thoracic surgery department, Dr. David Cook, who was very gracious and said, sure, let's set up a 15-minute meeting and we can meet and see if there's anything we can work on together. And since then, I made sure I was a good mentee. And he told me, you're a good mentee when you follow up on all your emails, you set deadlines, and you actually meet those deadlines. So he was a good mentor in telling me what his expectations were, and I, in turn, was a good mentee by actually doing it and tricking myself by saying that the deadline was 2 days ahead of what it actually was. So you can tell your mentees that, too. So as our relationship really transformed, Dr. Cook actually became one of my strongest sponsors. Anytime I needed a letter of recommendation that I would find an opportunity for, he was more than happy to write it, because once you have one on file, you just edit it a little bit. But more than anything, he heard about a scholarship, and immediately after, it was at one of our conferences, immediately after the presidential address, sent it to me within seconds of it being announced. You should apply to this. So that's how sponsors come into play. I wouldn't have known about many of these opportunities. I wouldn't know how to act, because I don't have anyone in my family and my network to actually showcase that. I am very good at copying, though. I am very good at mimicking, and I'm very good at developing that into what works for me and my skill set. So if you think of yourself as a model that others can build off of, all I need is a starting point. And that's what all mentees need. We just need a starting point, and we can go ahead and build off of that. And if there's doors that need to be opened for someone who doesn't have the resources, that can make the biggest difference. So I encourage you to think of yourself as a mentor and a sponsor, and how you can do both of those things at once. A lot of the times people think of sponsors as directly financially impacting someone, but you can do it just by presenting a job opportunity. I had to pay for my education throughout college, and I was presented with scholarships every once in a while by friends and college counselors and all those things, and that's indirect help, but it's still sponsorship. So I think that that's the biggest thing for me that I really wanted to get across, because that's made the biggest difference in my career trajectory, even to this day. Thank you.
Wow, that was fabulous. 4 panelists. Another big round of applause for our 4 fabulous panelists. I think, like you, I'm blown away by the wisdom of our relative elders, and just the passion and energy vision of the new wave of physicians, and it gives me so much hope for the present and the future. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions, right? Okay, so we have time for 1 or 2 questions. If you could just raise your hand and stand up and speak loudly, that would be fabulous. Or there might be a microphone or 2 going around too. Don't be shy. Yes, Chris, over here. It's one of our medical students from North State. Chris, why don't you stand up? Give Chris a big round of applause for being so brave to raise his hand.
I want to phrase this right. While I was listening to each of your stories, something that seemed to come up in one way or another was this idea of the mentor having a very special position in your life. And in some cases, it was explicit. In other cases, maybe it wasn't as explicit. At what point do you either realize that you have the capacity to mentor someone, and if you've had it for some time, or maybe it's not super obvious when that happens, what do you think is that barrier to recognizing you have the potential to serve as a mentor or as a sponsor for someone?
I currently serve as a mentor and sponsor, and I've done it since high school. In high school, I learned and I learned this from my mom. As a single parent, you build your network. You have to find the resources. So I was kind of scruffy since I was young, and I realized that we only get further ahead if we have community. And why should I keep all the resources to myself if I can help someone else get that same scholarship, get that same letter A grade, or learn about this career path? So to this day, I've actually had about 5 of my mentees get into medical school. I still have people who email me. One of my mentees just messaged me that he passed step 2 after taking it 3 times. And it's these little updates that really I respond to with enthusiasm, because I know what even for the attendings, a little thumbs up to your messages, what it means to the residents. So even as a medical student, the fourth years, when I was a third year, they served as my mentors, and I served as a mentor for the second years. So you can, at any point in your career, serve as a mentor, and it can look as simple as, don't take that class, or hey, buy this book, or don't buy the book, it's at the library. It's just this social capital that we're passing, and once again, for me, coming from a background where I didn't have social capital and I've had to build it, I am more than happy to share it and to help others come. As you were saying, you can do it now, and you can pull people as you rise as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Oh, yes, we have a question in the back there. Oh, yeah, if you can wait for the microphone, that'd be great.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here and sharing your stories. Just wanted to understand from the mentee's perspective, what are your biggest challenge right now that you feel this group can help you navigate?
I think the biggest challenge that this group can help with, and it was alluded to several times, is that our need for physicians, trained physicians, is increasing. And I think each one of you here, even as a medical student or a resident, can be a mentor. And recognizing that what these students need and tomorrow's physician is not very much. They sometimes need just a crack in that door, an insight into themselves or into what you do to spark their imagination.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If I may
Yes.
answer that. I think, especially with the rates of physician burnout, and I kind of alluded to that about Dr. Farzanagan, I think what I personally need, and I think what a lot of my colleagues need, is for someone to let us know we're doing a good job and that they see a potential for us and a space for us in practice. I think going through medical school, as you recall, it's daunting thinking that you're never good enough, you don't know what you're doing, your patients are better off having a different physician, you're never going to do the specialty that you want to. So I think having a mentor that, because we respect mentors, we look up to them because they did the thing that we really want to do. So when we look at them and they say, no, you got it, you can do this, you're going to be an incredible physician, and here I am as somebody you respect, seeing that for you, that's invaluable. That saves you from burnout, that saves you from depths of depression, that saves you from imposter syndrome. So I think that's really valuable.
Let's have another big round of applause for our panelists. Oh, I want to let you know the Medical Society will be launching an official mentorship program in conjunction with Joy of Medicine, Future of Medicine, and our Diverse Physician Workforce Forum. So if you are interested in participating in one of the mentorship opportunities, fill out the interest form link. There's a QR code on the screen, and we'll drop the link in the chat. And last but not least, before we take a 10-minute break before our 10:15 speaker, I'd like to thank Sam Mello. Sam, where are you? Online. Oh, Sam's online. I believe that this topic was Sam's idea, and Sam invited the panelists, and Sam came up with all the questions. So if you know Sam, or even if you don't, send her a big thank you for this. We're going to take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 10:15. Thank you very much.